probably feel confused by Mike. Hey, joining with Status Coup, breaking news in the never-ending saga that is former President Trump and the FBI's raid of Mar-a-Lago, a redacted version of the affidavit that was used to get a judge to sign off on the FBI searching Mar-a-Lago has been released. I read most of it. It's pretty long, but I did read most of it. I've taken kind of notes to take you through the key points. I'm pretty surprised, actually. I thought more of it would actually be redacted, meaning, blacked out. But a lot of it's not redacted. And, we've lived in an eternal, the walls are closing in on Trump for about 5 years now. So obviously, I think people have learned to be maybe a little bit more cautious about Trump going down. But I got to tell you, from reading what this affidavit says, it does not look good for Donald Trump. It does not look good for Donald Trump at all. And I'm going to tell you why. Please smash that like button. We got almost 200 people watching, but only 50 have pressed that like button. So if everybody could do their patriotic duty and smash that like button, it makes a huge difference in YouTube's algorithm. Please send super chats. Colin's not here today. He usually, sends me the super chats so I could read them at the end. So, Dean, if you're watching, if you could kind of catalog the super chats and send it to me so I could read them at the end. But smash that like button. Makes a big difference. Share this live stream. We'll get to all of this important information. And Trump is already hysterical on his Truth Social in reaction to this. So we'll get to all of it. Let me just show, first of all, a couple kind of news bulletins about this before I get into the actual affidavit. So this is from CNN. Department of Justice legal brief says the closure of some of the details in the oh, that's not one. This one. There could be, quote, evidence of obstruction at Mar-a-Lago, according to the FBI affidavit. In seeking permission to search Mar-a-Lago, the FBI told the judge that there was, quote, probable cause to believe that classified national security materials were improperly taken to unauthorized locations at former President Trump's club, and that a search would also likely find evidence of obstruction. Quote, there is probable cause to believe that additional documents that contain classified national defense information of that are presidential records subject to record retention requirements currently remain at Mar-a-Lago, the FBI affidavit says. There is also probable cause to believe that evidence of obstruction will be found at Mar-a-Lago. The affidavit continues. So that is one of the statutes that they are criminally investigating Trump for, obstruction of justice. But to me, the key thing here, and I'm going to go through the affidavit, is according to this affidavit, Trump had documents there about human sources, i.e. spies. So if you've ever, watched the Espionage movie or Homeland or any one of these kind of TV shows that, have the CIA, FBI, human intelligence, human sources mean spies. And information about spies, countries all over the world are trying to figure out who their enemies, who are their spies, because a spy could be, and many times are infiltrated in other countries' government or intelligence apparatus and spying on them and feeding back information. Well, Trump had classified documents about spies just sitting around Mar-a-Lago. Let that sink in. Trump had classified information about spies just sitting around Mar-a-Lago. So let me start. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but let me start reading just some of the affidavit. Okay. And remember, smash that like button. Almost 300 people already. Here's the first page. The government is conducting a criminal investigation. Oh, let me put this in the super chat if you don't have it. So if you want to read along with me, there is the link. Dean, if you could put that link to the affidavit in the description too, that would be helpful. And Please press that like button. Almost 300 people watching, but only 150 have pressed like. Like. Share. The government is conducting a criminal investigation concerning the improper removal and storage of classified information in unauthorized spaces, as well as the unlawful concealment or removal of government records. The investigation began as a result of a referral the United States National Archives and Records Administration sent to the Department of Justice on February 9th. So this was, at least, August? So this was 6 or 7 months ago. The National Archive referral stated that on January 18th, in accordance with the Presidential Records Act, the National Archives received from the office of former President Trump, hereinafter referenced as POTUS, former POTUS, via representatives, 15 boxes of records, hereinafter the 15 boxes. The 15 boxes, which had been transported from the former president's property at 1100 Ocean Boulevard, hereinafter the premises, a residence and club known as Mar-a-Lago, further described in Attachment A. After an initial review of the narrow referral, the FBI opened a criminal investigation to, among other things, determine how the documents with classification markings and records were removed from the White House or any other authorized locations for the storage of classified materials and came to be stored at Mar-a-Lago, determine whether the storage location at Mar-a-Lago were authorized locations for the storage of classified information, determine whether any additional classified documents or records may have been stored in an unauthorized location at the premises or another unknown location, and whether they remain at any such location, and identify any persons who may have removed or retained classified information. The FBI's investigation has established that documents bearing classification markings, which appear to contain national defense information, were among the materials contained in the 15 boxes and were stored at Mar-a-Lago in an unauthorized location. So this part's redacted. My assumption is it has information on how they learned these documents were at Mar-a-Lago and where they were stored. This could presumably be witness information, which it makes sense why those would be hidden and redacted. Further, here's an important part. There is probable cause to believe that additional documents that contain classified national defense information or that are presidential records subject to record retention requirements currently remain at Mar-a-Lago. There is also probable cause to believe that evidence of obstruction will be found at the premises. So I think this part's pretty important because, again, this is after Trump, his lawyers, had, according to them, returned everything, returned all the classified information and the classified documents they had. This is by a special FBI agent who's writing this. There's probable cause, meaning evidence, to believe that additional documents containing defense information are at Mar-a-Lago, and that there's evidence that there's some type of obstruction going on. Now, that obstruction could mean a lot of things. It could mean doing away with documents. It could mean sharing those documents with others. We don't necessarily know the nature of the obstruction. But right here, to me, this is showing that this is referencing informants that the DOJ and the FBI have that are tipping them off to Trump has X, Y, and Z documents here. Here's where they are, and probably providing evidence of where they are, either photos, video, etc. Because this is like, remember when Obama went in 2011, it was a 50-50 in Pakistan, whether the compound there, they were going in and they were going to find Osama bin Laden. I don't have a lot of great things to say about Obama. I think he was a pretty shitty president, to be honest, but he deserves credit. That was a risky gamble. And if they didn't find bin Laden, it was going to be bad politically for him. In this case, for the FBI and DOJ to go in and raid the former president's house, I don't think they would have done it if it was a 50-50. Presumably, they had witnesses that clearly showed them visually evidence of where things were and what was there. So I highlight that part because I think this part, they know about this from the witnesses and informants they had. I'm a special agent with the FBI assigned to the Washington field office. During this time, I received training, blah, 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 blah. All right, let me get to the next part that I found interesting. Page 4. Where such unauthorized disclosure could reasonably result in damage to the national security, the information may be classified as confidential and must be properly safeguarded. Where such unauthorized disclosure could reasonably result in serious damage to national security, the information may be classified as secret and must be properly safeguarded. Where such unauthorized disclosures could reasonably result in exceptionally grave damage to national security, the information may be classified as top secret and must be properly safeguarded. Sensitive compartmentalized information, SCI, means classified information concerning or derived from intelligence sources, methods, or analytical processes. Special intelligence, or SI, is an SCI control designed to protect technical and intelligence information derived from the monitoring of foreign communication signals by others than intended recipients. The SI control system protects SI-derived information and information relating to SI activities, capabilities, techniques, processes, and procedures. Human Control System, or HCS, is an SCI control designed to protect intelligence information derived from clandestine human sources, commonly referred to as human intelligence. The HCS control system protects human intelligence-derived information relating to human intelligence activities, capabilities, techniques, processes, and procedures. So let me repeat. Right here, they're talking about spies. They're talking about spies, and they found in Mar-a-Lago classified documents that had information about human sources, which are spies. Now, one could go in a lot of directions with this, right? Donald Trump, you could say, well, he's an idiot. And thank you for the super chat, Double K. Keep them coming. I'll read the super chats at the end. You could say, well, it's Trump. He's a moron. He wouldn't know what the hell was in these boxes. He wouldn't know that he had information or identifying information about spies in Mar-a-Lago. Maybe, maybe not. I don't think he's that stupid. But his lawyers would. His lawyers would. His lawyers presumably went through these documents if they were communicating with the National Archives, right? His lawyers presumably went through these boxes if they were communicating with the Department of Justice, because the DOJ sent officials down to Mar-a-Lago and they met with Trump's lawyers. By reports, Trump even stopped by at one point in the meeting. Why would Trump have information about human sources, i.e. spies, sitting around Mar-a-Lago? And by the way, as I'm going to show you in the rest of this affidavit, they were in these documents were all over the place. It was in his office. It was in his bedroom. It was in the hall right outside his bedroom, where people are going in and out all day. People are going in and out all day. Why would he have that information? I was never someone who, jumped the gun. I called Russiagate bullshit from the beginning. I never, I said, show me the evidence. I said, yeah, there's clear ties to Donald Trump and Russia, but not like collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, which there was never any evidence for. Frankly, remember, the DNC wouldn't even let the FBI inspect their servers. Why would the DNC not let the FBI inspect their servers if Russia clearly hacked the DNC? The reason I bring this up is I'm not one to just jump to conclusions just because it's Trump and I don't, I want to bring Trump down. There was always evidence that Trump had a relationship with Russia through his real estate business, because Trump, since the 1980s, and his father were guilty of money laundering, tax fraud, and doing shady deals with Russia, Saudi Arabia, among others. To me, that is why Trump was always, slobbering over Vladimir Putin. His son, Don Jr., even said, Russia is our biggest customer in real estate. In Miami, Florida, a lot of their properties are bought and owned at major prices by Russian oligarchs. So this isn't just, uncritically believe the FBI. Obviously, there's been a lot of bullshit that's been fed by media over the last few years in terms of Trump and Russia. There's been a lot of bullshit fed by the FBI, the DOJ, not just on this. I mean, it's the FBI. But why I think we shouldn't necessarily just, say, oh, they're lying to us, is because to get a judge to sign off on a warrant for most things, but definitely to go in and raid the former president of the United States, you need to show evidence, i.e. probable cause, that he has these things. You can't just say we think he has these things. You need to show evidence that he has these things. That's why a lot of this is redacted, because I think there's probably more than one witness within Trump's circle that tipped off the FBI, that tipped off the DOJ that, yeah, he has not returned everything to you. He has kept X, Y, and Z. Here's where it is. Here's where it is. And the FBI and DOJ probably said back, can you get us visuals of what and where it is? That's obviously speculation. I don't have proof of that, but I find it very hard to believe that Attorney General Merrick Garland, who's kind of known as like a vanilla, not an aggressive guy, would never go after bankers, big pharma, big oil, a former president. I find it very hard to believe he signed off on this, that the head of the FBI signed off on this, that a judge signed off on this, if the evidence wasn't blinking in their face. So that's a pretty big deal, that he had classified documents about spies sitting around Mar-a-Lago. I cannot wait for Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, the whole Fox News parade, Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro, all the right-wing, echo chamber to twist themselves into a human pretzel to defend this. And by the way, I think Hillary Clinton should be in prison, because if I had a private server and I was going around on that server, emailing and sharing classified information, intentionally or not, I'd be behind bars. You would certainly be behind bars. So I don't even want to hear, well, what about Hillary? All the right wing, if you cared about the sanctity and sacred nature of classified documents I have this conversation with my father. God bless him. I love my father, but he's a Fox News viewer and he's a Trumpy. He only likes Trump because he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem because he's a Zionist and loves Israel. We stay away from that topic, my father and I. I love him, but that's how he is. He only votes based on Israel. But I even said to him, because I recently drove up with him to Massachusetts to see some of his family that we haven't seen in years. I said, you are full of shit, Larry, my father. You're full of shit. You were hysterical 4 or 5 years ago. Oh, Hillary, the emails, classified, the server, this and that. But Trump's sitting around, under the kitchen table at Mar-a-Lago with classified documents. You're not concerned? No issue? So this kind of just shows the partisan fakeness of it all. None of these people actually care about the classified documents, the potential national security threat, yada, yada, yada. And I'm with you. I'm totally for defunding the FBI, more so the CIA, who to me has done a lot worse than the FBI, i.e. they killed JFK. But that's another story. But I really don't know, how does the right wing justify Donald Trump not just having these documents, but not giving them back? How do they justify that? Because it's one thing if you have these documents and whatever, you want to pin it on the lower level aides at the White House. Well, they just threw shit. It was kind of chaotic in those final days leaving the White House, and they just threw shit in boxes. I don't know what it was. I didn't really look at it, at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know. It's their fault. It's not mine. But when you're served a subpoena to give back all of it, when you don't give back all of it, they also found Trump's notes. And I'm going to read that part to you too. Doesn't look so good. Listen, we got 460 people watching. I need every single person to press the like button. We got more to go through in this affidavit, but we could get a lot more eyeballs if everyone presses the like button. Even if you're a right winger and you don't like me, just press the like button. Share this live stream so we can get more people to watch it. Makes a huge, huge difference. Appreciate any super chats. I'll read them at the end. And definitely, if you're new here to the channel, subscribe. Definitely subscribe to Status Coup. If you're new here, we don't just cover Trump. We report on the ground. We have interviews up on the channel. I just interviewed a railroad worker. There's going to be, there possibly might be a massive railroad worker strike coming up. Over 100,000 railroad workers might be going on strike within the next month. And if that happens, we will be there wherever it is. I also, I'm going to be releasing throughout the weekend more on the ground reporting that we did from our last reporting trip in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia, where we focused on the miserable economic hellscape we're all living in, while Biden and the rest of them are lying to you that the media is just great. So we do a lot of great stuff here, not just Trump. On the ground reporting, we focus on the union movement, workers trying to unionize, workers on strike, tenants unions fighting back illegal evictions. So we kind of do it all here. So I hope you'll subscribe and consider supporting us. Now, I want to go take you to a couple more parts of this. Let's go to page 17. Page 17. Hold on. All right. From May 16th to 18th, 22, FBI agents conducted a preliminary review of the 15 boxes provided to the National Archives and identified documents with classified markings in 14 of the 15 boxes. A preliminary triage of all the documents with classification markings revealed the following approximate numbers: 184 unique documents bearing classification markings, including 67 documents marked as confidential, 92 documents marked as secret, and 25 documents marked as top secret. Further, the FBI agents observed markings reflecting the following compartments' dissemination controls: HCS, FISA, ORCON, NOFORN, and SI. Let me just show you this so you know what all that means. SI is special intelligence. Human intelligence is human. NOFORN is not releasable to foreign nationals. ORCON, ORCON, is originator controlled. So he had all of this lying around Mar-a-Lago. To me, the biggest one here is the human intelligence and NOFORN, which is not releasable to foreign nationals. So he had quite a lot sitting around Mar-a-Lago. Based on my training and experience, I know that documents classified at these levels typically contain national defense information. Several of the documents also contained what appeared to be the former president's handwritten notes. So this redaction here, as a journalist, is really, really infuriating because I believe it pertains to his handwritten notes. And they are redacting it because it's likely part of whatever case they might be building against Donald Trump. The key aspect here, when they say usually these kinds of documents contain national defense information, and they say several of the documents also contained what appeared to be Trump's handwritten notes, it is very, very, very critical. Were these handwritten notes that he wrote while president? Or are these handwritten notes that are written in his post-presidency? Or is it hard? They can't tell. They can't tell because, Trump might have made notes while he was president, given briefings, made notes with certain documents. I find that hard to believe because, infamously, people who briefed him said that he had a very short attention span, that he wanted visuals much more than, full packets with loads of information. I have a very hard time that he was taking notes during briefings. Could be wrong, but based on what we know about Trump and what has been reported, he was very visual. Doesn't mean he didn't take notes while he was president, but to me, this part that's redacted very likely has information about the contents of those notes. Possibly, were they while he was president? Were they after he was president? Did he write notes about some of the classified documents that were lying around there. So that part is very, very critical because if this redacted part pertains to the notes, it might show motive if they believe or have evidence that it wasn't just that he had these classified documents, that he was doing something untoward with those documents. So that's a pretty critical part. Let me go now to page 29. And remember to smash that like button. We got nearly 500 people watching, but only 380 have pressed that like button. So smash that like button, share this live stream. Let's get over 500. Now, based upon this investigation, I believe that the storage room, the former POTUS's residential suite, Pine Hall, the 45 office, and other spaces within the premises are not currently authorized locations for the storage of classified information or national defense information. Similarly, based upon this investigation, I do not believe that any spaces within Mar-a-Lago have been authorized for the storage of classified information, at least since the end of the former president's administration on January 20th, 2021. So why this is important? And 1 second. Why this I think is important is because this is showing that these documents were everywhere. They weren't just like in his office. They were in the residential suite, meaning his room. Pine Hall, which I looked up, is basically a hall right outside of his room where people come and go, throughout the day and night. It's been reported that foreign dignitaries and foreigners come in and out of Mar-a-Lago. So you got his bedroom, you got the hall outside of his bedroom, you have his office and other spaces. Well, why does Donald Trump have classified information sitting around Mar-a-Lago in his bedroom, in the hall outside of his bedroom, in his office? Why would you have all that? These are not like little tchotchkes. These are not like pictures of him with, foreign leaders or Kim Jong-un or, celebrities. I mean, it's just crazy. Can you imagine just for a second if the FBI, DOJ found one classified document in Obama's presidential office? Can you imagine the Benghazi level meltdown that Fox News would have? That all these right-wing charlatan YouTube hosts and tweeters and TikTokers and Ben Shapiro who just gaslight you day after day, and they exist to fight the culture war. Can you just imagine their reaction if Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton was president? If they had any of this shit anywhere? Oh my God, they'd be calling possibly for a life sentence or the death penalty. Let me repeat. They'd be calling for a life sentence or the death penalty. And they would be screaming about these criminal Democrats endangering U.S. Military and spies. And they'd be right, by the way. They'd be right. Thank you for the super chat. Humorous. Keep those coming. I'll read them at the end. I mean, you really can't make this up. You really can't make this up. And I'm going to show you just some of the right-wing reaction in a little bit. So bear with me. Hold on 1 second. And by the way, the talking point apparently that Fox is going with is if all this stuff was such a major crisis, why didn't the FBI raid Donald Trump earlier? So the right wing initially has a freak out because they raided the president. And now the reaction is, well, if all this stuff was so terrible and so classified and so dangerous to be in Mar-a-Lago, why didn't they raid him earlier? Well, they tried to do things as non-aggressively as possible. They tried through the National Archives to kindly ask the president to give us back the classified information that, no, you can't just declassify with a magic wand, and he wouldn't do it. Then they issued a subpoena, which is a non-aggressive way of getting documents back. I've covered in Flint and other things, subpoenas routinely issued. He wouldn't comply with that. What else can you do? Send the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to Mar-a-Lago? So they're moving the goalpost now. They're totally moving the goalpost. And remember, they wanted the affidavit released. But now that the affidavit has been released, here's what they're going with. This is from Neanderthal white supremacist Jack Posobiec. Trump must release the surveillance tapes immediately. So apparently now the big thing is the surveillance tapes. And I'll show you, this is just one of Trump's posts from his Truth Social, which reports are now indicating it might go bankrupt. Affidavit heavily redacted. Nothing mentioned on nuclear, a total public relations subterfuge by the FBI and DOJ, or our close working relationship regarding documents turnover. We gave them much. I love how he writes it like it's almost like he did them a favor. Like, you don't have a choice what to give or what not to give. None of this belongs to you. Judge Bruce Reinhart should never have allowed the break-in of my home. He recused himself 2 months ago from one of my cases based on his animosity and hatred for your favorite president, me. What changed? Why hasn't he recused himself on this case? Obama must be very proud of him. So it's your usual Trump kind of distraction, deflection, gaslighting. But I'm telling you, listen, this is the United Corporations of America. It's very rare when wealthy white people go to prison. In the rare cases that they do go to prison, we always they kill themselves or they're let out of prison very quickly. Martin Shkreli, Farmer Bro, is already out of prison. I think he served 3 years. Jeffrey Epstein, when he was in prison the first time, basically was in a glorified bed and breakfast. He was let out of prison to work out of his office while he was in prison. And then infamously, when he was gone to prison again, he killed himself. So I'm not saying, let me find it. I'm not saying.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
But what I am saying is the more that comes out, it doesn't look good. It does not look good for Donald Trump because it is a staggering amount of classified information he have. He did not give it back when he was kindly asked for it. Then he was subpoenaed for it. It does not look good at all for Donald Trump. And Dean, if you don't mind copying the super chat so I could read them at the end. Let me go now to page 34. So this is from Trump's lawyer. And I believe it's from a letter written by Trump's lawyer in May to either the National Archives or the Department of Justice. I write on behalf of Donald Trump regarding the above referenced matter. Public trust in the government is low. At such times, adherence to the rule and longstanding policies is essential. President Trump is a leader of the Republican Party. The Department of Justice, as part of the executive branch, is under the control of a president from the opposite party. It is critical, given that dynamic, that every effort is made to ensure that actions by the Department of Justice that may touch upon the former president or his close associates do not involve politics. There have been public reports about an investigation by the Department of Justice into presidential records purportedly marked as classified among materials that were once in the White House and unknowingly included among the boxes brought to Mar-a-Lago by the movers. So his lawyer was saying All of this was unknowingly moved to Mar-a-Lago by the movers. Right, because, you know, the movers just jack classified information and highly sensitive documents and just throw them in a box, right? It is important to emphasize that when a request was made for the documents by the National Archives, President Trump readily and voluntarily agreed to their transfer to the National Archives. The communications regarding the transfer of boxes to the National Archives were friendly, open, and straightforward. Well, that's not true, because documents from the National Archives to Trump's lawyers were leaked last week by Trump's people, and the National Archives were very forceful and aggressive that you need to return this stuff. It wasn't friendly and open. President Trump voluntarily ordered that the boxes be provided to NARA. No legal objection was asserted about the transfer. No concerns were raised about the contents of the boxes. It was a voluntary and open process. That also is not true. Unfortunately, the good faith demonstrated by Trump was not matched once the boxes arrived at NARA. Leaks followed, and once DOJ got involved, the leaks continued. Leaks about any investigation are concerning. Leaks about an investigation that involved the residence of a former president who is still active on the national political scene are particularly troubling. Now, here is, I mean, it's kind of laughable, but here is what I think their defense was a couple months ago. I don't know if it's still their defense. A president has absolute authority to declassify documents. Under the U.S. Constitution, the president is vested with the highest level of authority when it comes to the classification and declassification of documents. See U.S. Constitution, Article 2, blah, 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 blah. His constitutionally based authority regarding the classification and declassification of documents is unfettered. The president's authority to classify and control access to information bearing on national security flows primarily from this constitutional investment of power in the president and exists quite apart from any explicit congressional grant. So the president can't just wave a wand and declassify information. It is a process. There's a process that documents go. Now, history will show there's a whole lot of documents that were incorrectly classified that should have been released to the public and should have never been classified. I give you the JFK Records Act. We know a lot more about the JFK assassination, the CIA, because of the JFK Records Act and the declassification of records that were not classified to protect national security, but were classified to cover up the government assassinating a president. And it goes across the board, not just about JFK, but a lot of things. So there's a lot of documents that should have never been classified. However, Trump can't just utter the word declassified and it's declassified as president. That's not how it works. And you certainly can't do that when you're not president anymore. So this is like a kangaroo court style defense. I don't know who his lawyers are, judging by his previous lawyers like Sidney Powell and, you know, Rudy hair dye Giuliani. It's kind of crazy. They go on top of saying that he could just, you know, declassify whatever he wants. They go on to say presidential actions involving classified documents are not subject to criminal sanction. Any attempt to impose criminal liability on a president or former president that involves his actions with respect to documents marked classified would implicate grave constitutional separation of powers issues. Beyond that, the primary criminal statute that governs the unauthorized removal and retention of classified documents or material does not apply to the president. The statute provides in pertinent as follows: whoever being an officer, employee, contractor, or consultant of the United States and by virtue of his office, employment, position, or contract becomes possessed of documents or materials containing classified information of the United States, knowingly removes such documents or materials without authority and with the intent to retain such documents or materials at an unauthorized location shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 5 years. So I don't really know what he's talking about, because he says that the president can't be held liable, but it says right here that he can. And more importantly, this whole standing order to just declassify, like, nobody would approve declassifying information about spies. Nobody would approve declassifying information about nuclear programs. Like, it goes through a process. So it's not just the president gets to do whatever he wants. You think the military industrial complex would be okay with declassifying their nuclear programs or their spies? No. So, yeah, it just seems like craziness from the lawyer. And it really, you start to wonder, why was Trump so insistent on keeping this information? Why was Trump so hell-bent on keeping these documents? Again, I'm not trying to create out of thin air some espionage thriller, but did he just want these documents for morning reading, even though he doesn't read much? Did he just want these documents like for leverage over the government if they came after him on other things? Because there's the Southern District of New York is investigating him. The Attorney General of New York is investigating him. Georgia is investigating him for the him on tape saying, "Get me 11,000 more votes." We believe the Department of Justice might be investigating him over January 6th. Did he want these documents for just like leverage? And, you know, I don't have any inside information, but one would have to believe that his lawyers who certified to the Department of Justice and the FBI, his lawyers who certified that he had returned everything. Well, unless they're like Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and just like don't really give a shit about the law or potential prison time, they would be facing prison time if they lie to the FBI or the Department of Justice. So my feeling is the lawyers might have been led astray by Trump himself. The lawyers might have been fed by Trump. That's everything. And then later found out that's not everything. So it is very possible that the FBI's witnesses and informants include either one or two of Trump's lawyers, because they definitely had informants who were tipping them off inside Trump world. My bingo card, it's either the lawyers or, if there is a God, Jared Kushner. I want to, this to me is a very illuminating tweet. In real estate, it's about location, location, location. When it comes to unlawful retention of classified documents, it's about willfulness, willfulness, willfulness. And it looks like the government has that evidence in abundance. And this was in response to another lawyer saying the extent of what has been compromised in our intelligence gathering capabilities is going to be staggering. The documents include what's known as special intelligence information. The Department of Justice calls that technical and intelligence information derived from the monitoring of foreign communication signals by other than the intended recipients. So not only does it look like Trump had information about spies there, because that's what human sources mean, which I went through earlier. Certainly looks like he might have had classified documents about foreign communication signals by others than the intended recipients, i.e., information about other countries or possible leaders. Again, take off your blue hat or your red hat, because I know there's a lot of right-wingers and Trumpies very angry in the chat right now. What is the defense for this? Honestly, even if you love Trump, even if you think he's super duper MAGA spectacular, what is the real defense for this? I don't want to hear about Hillary. Enough about Hillary. We agree. I think Hillary should have been indicted personally. But what is the possible defense for him having all of this? Why would he not return it? Can anyone come up with a real reason for this? Let me play this clip. This is from Neil Katyal. He's a former Supreme Court lawyer. I thought something he said made a lot of sense.
When you're reading an affidavit, you're also looking for kind of characteristics of kind of the personalities. What do they think? And this document, even just the parts we have, just reveals that the FBI, the Justice Department, think that Donald Trump is a liar. So if you look at paragraph 25, for example, they talk about how the archivist on February 18th of this year said to Trump, hey, we found some classified documents here. And identified concerns and the like. That's a formal letter that was sent by the archivist. Later that day, Trump's account tweets out saying they, quote, did not find anything. They were given upon request presidential records in an ordinary and routine process as part of the preservation of my legacy. Those two things are fundamentally inconsistent with one another. And I think what the affidavit is trying to do is to say, don't trust this guy. You can't believe him. When you're reading an affidavit, you're also looking for kind of characteristics of.
So right there, they think he's lying. Right there, they think he's lying. Let me go to page 61. So bear with me. Two. I'm kind of going through this with you, so just bear with me. Yeah, this is the part I wanted here. So on June 8th, 2022, Department of Justice counsel sent the former president counsel a letter which reiterated that the premises are not authorized to store classified information and requested the preservation of the storage room and boxes that had been moved from the White House to the premises. Specifically, the letter stated in relevant part, as I previously indicated to you, Mar-a-Lago does not include a secure location authorized for the storage of classified information. As such, it appears that since the time classified documents redacted were removed from the secure facilities at the White House and moved to Mar-a-Lago on or around January 20th, 2021, they have not been handled in an appropriate manner or stored in an appropriate location. Accordingly, we asked that the room at Mar-a-Lago where the documents had been stored be secured, and that all of the boxes that were moved from the White House to Mar-a-Lago, along with any other items in that room, be preserved in that room in their current condition until further notice. So this part I think is important because remember, they're saying we asked that the room at let me say this is from June, right? June 8th. Accordingly, we asked that the room at Mar-a-Lago where the documents had been stored be secured and that all of the boxes that were moved from the White House to Mar-a-Lago be preserved in that room in their current condition until further notice. This is what possibly, again, we don't have all the details. This might possibly be part of what they're talking about in terms of obstruction. They're saying, don't move anything. Do not touch anything. Do not leave it. They're saying be preserved in that room. They're saying it needs to be better secured, but be preserved in that room in their current conditions until further notice. Well, when the search warrant came out, in addition to investigating him for possible espionage crimes, the Espionage Act, there was statutes about falsification of documents, potential concealment of documents, and mutilation of documents. Well, right here in June, they're telling them these documents, they shouldn't be in your fucking country club in the first place. Those are my words, but preserve them in that room in their current conditions. And, you know, I think this is a fair question. Let me get your comment here. So now the Cheryl, why didn't they just take all of it in June? You know, to me, and again, I'm not somebody who like loves the FBI. I'm not somebody who like, you know, bow down to the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice. I think most of them are fucking liars. The Department of Justice let the police officer who murdered Eric Garner off the hook. We saw it. They strangled him. The DOJ under Obama didn't prosecute that officer. The Department of Justice didn't go after any bankers who tanked the global economy because we live in the United Corporations of America. They didn't go after any of the Wall Street criminals under Obama. They don't go after fossil fuel executives that poison our water and air. They don't go after, you know, Hillary Clinton. They don't go after plenty of corporate criminals and politicians. Hell, most of our politicians are committing insider trading violations. They're not going to go after them. So I'm not somebody who just like bows down. In my view, this isn't a partisan thing. I think Hillary Clinton should have been indicted. If I had a private server and I was emailing classified information, they would throw away the key and lock me up. Same thing with you. So to the right wing who says, but what about Hillary? I agree with you. But that doesn't just, you know, Trump gets a get out of jail free card, because what about Hillary? Take your red hat off and take your blue hat off. But I actually kind of see why they didn't. They tried, from what I could tell, they tried every measure possibly not to aggressively go in there to a former president's home and raid the place. I mean, these communications with the National Archives and Trump's lawyers were going on for over a year. The FBI wasn't informed. The Department of Justice was not informed of any of this, I believe, until this year. But they tried to get it back, just kindly asking. The Department of Justice went down there in I believe in May or June and met with Trump's lawyers. So there's multiple potential situations here, right? First off, it's very possible that the FBI and DOJ were not aware of the full extent of what Trump had there. They know from the National Archives that some of what was returned from Trump's lawyers and Trump to the National Archives, some of what was returned was classified documents. It's possible they did not know all of what Trump had down there, including that he had classified documents about spies, that he had classified information potentially about nuclear programs. They might have not known until they were tipped off by informants within Trump world. Because to me, that's a big part of what was redacted. And the Department of Justice, in their filing to the judge, said, we feel X, Y, and Z needs to be redacted, including witnesses, which makes sense. Well, their witnesses are not coming from, the FBI. They're coming from inside Trump's world, probably people in and out of Mar-a-Lago. It could be the Secret Service. It could be lawyers for Trump. It could be Trump's family. Who the hell knows? We don't know. But to me, I think they went out of their way not to do this aggressively because they knew the political implications. They know this country is a powder keg anyway. They know that if they went after Trump, that his supporters would react accordingly. They knew that if they went after Trump, it would give credence to, the deep state is coming after us, civil war. We already saw some of what has happened. A man attacked the FBI in Cincinnati, started shooting at them. Another man in Pennsylvania was arrested for threatening to slaughter the FBI. He was arrested before that could happen. Another man, I believe, was just arrested. I forget where, for making threats to the FBI. We're seeing a real increase in threats of violence directed at the FBI, the IRS, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think I think they didn't go in then for two reasons. Number one, they were trying to exhaust every possibility. They issued a subpoena to Trump, and a subpoena is basically the last stop before executing a search warrant and going in there. For example, for those of you who have watched Status Coup for many years, you know that I have been covering the Flint water cover-up for many years. I've been there nearly 20 times. Thank you to our paying members who help fund my reporting so I could keep going back there. In the case of the Flint water investigation, By the way, it's over 8 years later. The water is still toxic in Flint. The media just has totally abandoned the story. I'm working on another massive investigative piece. I'm not going to go into detail, but there's evidence of potential destruction of evidence. Let me say that. But in the case of Flint, the former governor of Michigan was not complying with subpoenas, just like Trump was not complying with subpoenas. He was subpoenaed to deliver briefings that he received about the Flint water problems. He was subpoenaed to provide key documents pertaining to what he was told about the Flint water crisis and when he was told and by whom he was told, and he would not cooperate. So the special prosecutor that was appointed to run the Flint investigation, he requested a search warrant so that they could literally do what the FBI did to Trump, so that the investigators in Flint could go in and seize computers from the governor's office, documents from the governor's office, all of it. They got shot down by the Attorney General of Michigan. Why did they get shot down by the Attorney General of Michigan? For political reasons. The Attorney General of Michigan at the time was a Republican. The former governor of Michigan was a Republican. The Attorney General of Michigan wanted to run for governor to replace Rick Snyder. Rick Snyder was not going to be able to run again because he was term limited. So it's not going to be great for the Attorney General who's trying to run to replace the Republican governor to go and raid the sitting governor of Michigan. Yeah, the donors might not look so kindly on that. They're probably not going to fund your campaign if you're going after the sitting Republican governor for poisoning an entire city. So for political reasons, he shot down the special prosecutor who filed for a search warrant. That he's not giving us the documents. He won't give us the briefings that were delivered to him. He's basically obstructing our investigation. In this case, there wasn't that political motivation. I mean, Merrick Garland's not trying to run for president. So he approved it. But the answer to that question is they did try and get this stuff. They did try not to go in aggressively. But at the end of the day, if you are tipped off later on that, yeah, they didn't return everything. Because remember, Trump's lawyer certified that they had already returned everything. So clearly the FBI, the Department of Justice were tipped off. They have not returned everything. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. I think that's everything. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to show you. And keep smashing that like button. Keep sharing this live stream. It makes a big difference. Hold on. Yeah, this is something I wanted to show also. So this is from author of The Unexpected Spy, former CIA, an explainer on the classification of documents Trump had per the affidavit. Orcon, originator controlled. The person who wrote said classified document is the only one who could release it. So this one is basically saying he had documents that only one person had the authority to release, the person who authored the documents. No foreign distribution to non-U.S. citizens prohibited regardless of their clearance. HCS, human control system used to further protect sensitive intelligence information. FISA governs the conduct of certain electronic activities with the U.S. against U.S. persons regardless of location. And she said the Orcon is real bad. I wasn't expecting that. That is well above a TSI, SCI classification. Somebody said, this stuff literally puts people's lives at risk. She said, it sure does. And this is a former CIA. And this answers, somebody else asked me, why did they wait this long? They actually didn't wait long. If you look at the affidavit, it's pretty clear everything happened rather quickly. So, the right wing is going to do what the right wing does. The right wing is going to put their head in the sand. They're going to move the goalposts. So first it was, you know, it's all declassified stuff there. Then it was, oh, there's some classified stuff, but what about Hillary? Then it was the president has the right to declassify anything he wants, whatever he wants, even though that's not true. So, yeah. And I'm just getting notice that Trump is going on a rampage right now on Truth Social. So let me show you some of Trump's latest. I think Trump's in trouble. I really do. You know, I haven't been one of these people saying that the walls are closing in on Trump forever and ever, but, you know, somebody only has so many lives. You know what I mean? Until his luck runs out. Let me show you some of this. 1 second. Normally I have Colin, but he's on vacation, so I'm doing this myself. All right. Trump on Truth Social, the political hacks and thugs had no right under the Presidential Records Act to storm Mar-a-Lago and steal everything in sight, including passports and privileged documents. They even broke into my safe with a safe cracker. Can you believe? This act was created for a very good reason, and it works. We are right now living in a lawless country that just so happens to be also a failing nation. So he's staying on that he's the victim, and, you know, no explanation for why he had classified documents about spies, human sources, etc. The radical left Democrat prosecutors are illegally trying to circumvent, for purely political gain, the Presidential Records Act, under which I have done absolutely nothing wrong. It cannot be circumvented. For me or any other president, they illegally raided my home and took things that should not have been taken. They even broke into my safe, an unthinkable act. And by the way, I mean, there's no lawyer worth his salt on earth that would be telling Trump to be posting this stuff, because he's potentially incriminating himself further. But to be clear, the Presidential Records Act does not give the former president carte blanche to take classified documents about spies to his country club. I can't believe I even have to say this. Does not give him carte blanche to take classified documents about nuclear programs or intelligence gathering or any of that shit to his country club. That's just not at all reality. Then Trump posted, I don't debate anyone who can't pass the hoax quiz. So it seems like he's dusting out the whole hoax thing. And I'll play this here. Donald Trump, The Great America Show, President Donald Trump joined number 45 and Lou today. I guess he's talking about Lou Dobbs. I don't know.
I did nothing wrong. And it's the exact same thing here. We were essentially attacked. We were broken into. They opened up safes. They brought safe crackers in. They brought many, many
So clearly Trump is handling this well. Clearly Trump is handling this well. I don't know. Let me read some of your comments here. And yes, I mean, the truth is people could die once their uncover information is exposed. And that's the really critical thing. You know, with the White House, for example, I mean, they know who's coming in and out of the White House, right? At Mar-a-Lago, they have no idea who's coming in and out of Mar-a-Lago. They have no idea the origins of who's coming in and out of Mar-a-Lago. They have no idea, you know, what countries are they from? They have no idea if they are politicians from other countries. They have no idea if they're foreign dignitaries from other countries. They have no idea who the fuck is coming in and out of Donald Trump's country club and staying there. So, I'm not saying that Trump, this, unless they have evidence, we'll learn. I'm not saying that Trump was trying to sell U.S. secrets to the highest bidder in Russia or Saudi Arabia or China or whatever. I mean, maybe some other liberals will melt down and be pushing that. We don't have evidence of that. But whether he was intentionally or not, you're taking highly classified material and it's not even stored properly. And anyone is coming in and out of Mar-a-Lago and could, if it's not locked away, could potentially take photos, take documents. Who the hell knows? I mean, they would have absolute meltdowns about this on Fox News if it was any Democrat. And I would just say to any right-winger watching, whether you like Trump or not, look yourself in the mirror. Look yourself in the mirror and just ask simply, how would you react if this was Biden, if this was Obama, Bill Clinton? How would you react? Would you be saying the same exact thing? Would you be saying it's all political? There's a sickness in this country. It's called tribalism. It's called partisanship. The media is largely responsible for it. It takes away people's critical thinking skills and just makes people kind of cult worshiper of one side or the other. That's why I call them all corrupt. That's why I go after the Democrats and the Republicans, because they're all corrupt. They're all basically one party called the United Corporations of America, which, by the way, get your United Corporations of America shirt in time for the fall season. Just saying. StatusCoup.com/store. Get your United Corporations of America shirt. StatusCoup.com/store. Or your Fossil Fuckers shirt. My personal favorite. Just saying. And of course, consider signing up as a Status Coup member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. This is how we fund our on-the-ground reporting. And we're doing our members call next week when Colin's back from vacation. So for you newbies, consider signing up. StatusCoup.com/join. You'll get to join our members call through Zoom. You get behind the scenes content when we're on the road covering stories. Like I said earlier, I think we'll see. We might have the largest strike of the last 50 to 100 years. The railroad workers potentially will be going on strike within a month. Over 100,000 workers. Of course, the corporate media is not talking about this. I interviewed the head of the Railroad Workers United. We're going to air that interview here over the weekend. They've been without a contract for 3 years. They have horrendous attendance policies, meaning basically no days off. Their pay increases are not even comparable to inflation. So there might be a massive railroad worker strike. If there is, you bet your bottom dollars we'll be there covering it. Obviously, we've been covering the union movement all across the country. We've covered the Starbucks workers on the ground. We were there in Buffalo before their historic victory, and now there's over 250 Starbucks that have unionized. We covered the Amazon workers in Staten Island organizing for over a year before they won. We're there when others are not. We were in Iowa covering the John Deere workers that went on strike last year. We froze our asses off. So consider signing up as a member. I'll give you a shout out right here on the show if you sign up while I'm still alive. Now, let me, some kind of closing thoughts. I think I've pretty much addressed most of the things that I wanted to address in the affidavit. I'm sure more will come out. I'm sure more will come out as the day goes on because it's, I think, almost 40 pages. Hold on. But a few things kind of stand out to me. First of all, Trump's spiel here is that he was fully cooperative. He was fully cooperative with the National Archives, with the DOJ, with the FBI. That's not true. That's not true. He was not fully cooperative. He was kindly asked for these documents back. He refused to give them all back. Then he selectively gave certain documents back. Then his lawyers certified that he had returned all of the documents. And then the FBI was tipped off that he hasn't. So right then and there, former president or not, he was lying to the National Archives, and he was lying to the Department of Justice. That's it. Secondly, they initially, and I showed you his lawyer's letter, basically pinned it on the movers, right? The movers just put this stuff in a box. We didn't know, we didn't know that this stuff had been moved to Mar-a-Lago. Well, even if you wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt that were true, you have to wonder, well, if the movers just threw a bunch of shit in boxes, was there no process? Was there no process as Trump was leaving the White House? Who was directing them what to take from the White House? The movers didn't just decide, yeah, let me throw, the information about spies, information about potentially nuclear programs. Somebody was directing these movers what to take. And reports, not in this affidavit, but previous reports have come out saying Trump personally went through what these documents were. So Trump personally went through the documents, and some were returned and some weren't. That, to me, is motive. Why did he hold out on returning certain documents? Why would he have information about U.S. spies at Mar-a-Lago? Why wouldn't he return that? If you accidentally had this stuff, I'd fucking return it right away. I mean, you still potentially could go to jail for having it, but at least show good faith. At least show some good faith. Even some Fox News people. Look at this. This is Karl Rove. Karl Rove, Bush's brain.
Deliberate lie or a lie vision, they would have somebody who had said, in essence, you have been misled, whether it was a deliberate lie or a lie based in ignorance. Somebody told you there's no more classified material here. There is classified material here.
Carl, Jonathan Turley was just joining us a moment ago, and he said, yes, the affidavit does confirm a couple points that it did appear in the leaks that we have seen come from the press throughout this process. But he also says the affidavit did not establish that the Trump people were wholly uncooperative or non-communicative, while noting that they were asked to turn over material and did not do so. There seems to be still a huge piece missing there in the timeline, and the affidavit doesn't appear to clear that up. Going back to the New York Post headline in the middle of all of this, you could have just asked.
Well, first of all, I agree with Jonathan Turley about the leaks. They are very troubling. This is what we don't want to see out of a process like this. But look, it is clear that beginning sometime in early 2021, through January of 2022, the NARA, the National Archives and Records Administration, was continually asking for the return of all material. The Presidential Record Act is clear. A president does not have the right to leave the White House and pick and choose what documents he wants to take with him. He can ask for copies, but those are the property of the American people. And since 1978, no president has left with the, sort of picking and choosing their own documents. So they were asking. How many times, we don't know, but the impression in the affidavit is that they asked for them multiple times, and in January were given material back. They again begin to ask, the federal government begins to ask the former president for return of anything else he has there, and they know there's material there. I mean, they go on June 3rd and view the boxes of material. They have a general sense of how many boxes are there. So, maybe we ought to ask the government, how many times did you ask for the return of the material? And President Trump has said several times, all they had to do was ask. Well, my sense is they were asking for a year and a half. And why he was holding on to these materials when he had no legal authority to do so under the Presidential Records Act is beyond me.
All right, Karl Rove, with his thoughts on that. Karl, we appreciate it. We may come back to you depending on how the afternoon unfolds. Right now, let's go back to David.
To the war criminals, Bush and Cheney, because Karl Rove helped George Bush steal the election back in the day in 2000. Gotta love, by the way, all these Democrats, all these Republicans certainly concerned about saving our democracy. But, you know, especially Liz Cheney. Oh, she's so worried about saving democracy. Well, she was totally fine helping her daddy steal an election in the year 2000. But I digress. But even Karl Rove is calling bullshit on Trump, because Trump's little rantings on Truth Social are claiming the Presidential Records Act clearly state I can do whatever the fuck I want to do with these records. No, it does not. No, it does not. So I genuinely do not know what the right-wing defense for this is. You're running out. Running out of defense, if you ask me. This, I think, is also interesting here. This is from, who is she? A legal analyst at NBC. Affidavit discussed classification status of documents at Mar-a-Lago, even though statutes do not require classification as an element, making declassification defense irrelevant. The contents of documents show the grave risk to national security Trump created. So I think that's an important point. He could be committing crimes even if they are declassified. So his whole I waved my magic wand and declassified everything, it's not a defense. And a lot of this was pretty heavy-duty classified information, clearly. So we shall see. We shall see. It seems for now, Fox News, the right wing, are moving the goalpost now to release the FBI surveillance tape. So then we could reveal that the FBI planted things, which seems to be the insinuation with release the tapes. That was Jack Posobiec saying that. So we'll see. Before I end, I want to cover one more story, which is pretty damn important because essentially the Federal Reserve Chair announced today that essentially he's going to try and create a recession to lower unemployment. Yes, the Federal Reserve Chair basically is saying that he's going to try and create a recession to lower inflation. Wait for this. And don't go anywhere because this is relevant because a lot of people might lose their jobs. A lot of people might lose their jobs because of this. Here we go. Let me get this. Jerome Powell. While higher interest rates, slower growth, and softer labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses. These are the unfortunate costs of reducing inflation. Let me repeat. While higher interest rates, slower growth, and softer labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses. These are the unfortunate costs of reducing inflation. What he means by softer labor market conditions and pain is, well, we're going to have to lay a lot of people off to lower prices. And Steve Grumbine, who co-hosts with me here and hosts his own show on Status Coup, this is ridiculous. This is right-wing monetary bullshit redistribution upwards, killing the economy and hurting families' first price caps, antitrust, or regulating exports of needed supplies. Stop punching down. And by the way, this is not new. Larry Summers, who used to be let me get this for you. Larry Summers, who used to be Clinton's economic guy, I think he was Clinton's Treasury Secretary. He was the head of Obama's council, says we need to increase unemployment. Larry Summers said, we need massive unemployment to beat inflation. The economists walked me through the reasoning behind the harsh forecast. Is he right? Late last month, Summers got more specific about just how much pain he thought it would take. We need 5 years of unemployment above 5% to contain inflation. In other words, we need 2 years of 7.5% unemployment, or 5 years of 6% unemployment, or 1 year of 10% unemployment, Summers said during a speech at the London School of Economics. He added that the numbers were remarkably discouraging compared with the predictions of the Federal Reserve leaders who have suggested they could bring down inflation without punishing unemployment much above 4%. And just so you understand, this reasoning, these fucking neoliberal corporate assholes who had no problem with the banks being bailed out, have no problem with major corporations and wealthy people getting PPP loans that were meant for small businesses. You got Kanye got a PPP loan. Tom Brady got a PPP loan. The band Green Day got a PPP loan. Jared Kushner got a PPP loan. Again, all of this was meant for small businesses. The scummy bald guy from Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, who's not even American, he's a Canadian, got a PPP loan. And they were all forgiven for these people, right? Their mentality is if we lay off more people, then there's less money in people's pockets. Less money in people's pockets equals less demand. Less demand, prices go down. So that is their genius idea. Hurt working people so that we could lower prices. But here's the rub, folks. Here's the rub. The jig is up. The jig is up. This came out just yesterday. U.S. corporate profits soar with margins at widest since 1950. Business is passing on higher costs and then some, data show. Some Democrats have blamed price gouging for high inflation. A measure of U.S. profit margins has reached its widest since 1950, suggesting that the prices charged by businesses are outpacing their increased costs for production of labor. In English, corporate America is price gouging you. What you are paying at the pump, what you are paying at the grocery store, what you are paying for electricity, certainly what you're paying for rent. 20% increases in major American cities right now. I was in Florida, Tampa, Orlando, West Palm Beach, Miami. You're talking 25 to 30% increases. DC, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, astronomical. What they are charging you is not based on, well, you know, our prices to buy goods are going up because of inflation, talking as the corporation. So we have to then pass that down to the customer. That ain't true. Because if that were true and they were just passing down the increase in their costs to buy goods wholesale to then sell to you, they wouldn't be having astronomical record profits. But in America, see, because we live in the United Corporations of America, there's no laws regulating corporate greed. None. Why? Well, let's listen to our friend Nancy Pelosi. After all,
but I have to say we're capitalist. And that's just the way it is. But I have to say we're capitalist.
So there you have it. These corporations are gouging. That is not to say that there is no legitimate reasons for the inflation we have. The main driver of our inflation currently, the main driver of our current inflation is the supply chain issues that started because of COVID. The corporate media doesn't like talking about this, but why is it that we have such a supply chain crisis? Could it be Could it be, if you don't know your history, let me explain it to you. Could it be that in the United Corporations of America, starting about 1970s, 1980s, we started selling our manufacturing to Mexico, China, and other countries? We don't make things here anymore. So that's why we are so heavily reliant on China, Mexico, a whole lot of other countries for our supply. Because multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates started writing our trade deals because they bought off our politicians. I don't want to get you so in the weeds and so bored. Read the Powell memo of 1971, which basically gave away the game that corporations were going to start buying off universities, politicians, the media. That's the Powell memo, 1971. So essentially, we stopped making shit here so that we could basically have, basically slave wage workers in China, Mexico, and other countries make our products so we could lower the price of consumer goods while laying off a whole generation of workers, primarily in the Midwest. So we have a supply chain press. I just went on the road for you Status Coup viewers. The videos are all up on this channel. So if you're new here, go check them out. I was in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia. We drove 1,500 miles in 8 days. We interviewed workers in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. I interviewed homeless people, poor people. I interviewed one store owner. Him and his family has owned an Italian food market in Pittsburgh, Donatelli's, for 90 years. They just shut down. They can't get a lot of the products, specialty products that they are known for because of the supply chain crisis. That is one of the biggest drivers of inflation. It's not canceling student loans, which everyone's hysterical about. Bullshit. They haven't. Remember, the loans have been on pause for 2.5 years. The students have been paying it for 2.5 years. It had no bearing on inflation whatsoever. So canceling them will have no bearing on inflation. Frankly, all these people, applauding Joe Biden. Listen, is it good that it looks like 20 to 30 million people will have their loans wiped out? I'm not going to minimize that. Biden deserves some credit. Should he have canceled the whole fucking thing? Yes. So I'm not going to do victory laps for a president that offered mostly crumbs. And shame on the progressives in Congress, because they should have had a major pressure campaign on him to cancel the whole thing. They should have been activating the base to protest outside the White House gates until he canceled it. He might have not canceled all of it, but if there was actual pressure on him from the AOCs, the Rashida Tlaibs, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, Jamal Bowman, Bernie, maybe he would have done more. But the bottom line is what Jerome Powell is saying here. Get ready for some pain. We're going to have to put some pain on the workers to lower inflation. And why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? Let me find it here. Let me show you this clip. It's not always that I could give credit to Elizabeth Warren,
took office,
but here
added more than 6 point.
She got Jerome Powell to admit that actually corporate America is just price gouging because they can.
It imposes.
In principle, if you don't have competition and you're a monopolist, yes, you can raise your prices.
Okay, and over the past year, we know that prices have risen because of supply chain problems, unexpected shifts in the demand for goods, and even higher labor costs. But if corporations were simply passing along these costs in highly competitive markets, would the company's profit margins have changed much?
So many things affect those that calculation. In principle, you could be right, but
Well, it's very much not what we're seeing. right now. Today, nearly 2 out of 3 of the biggest publicly traded corporations in the country are reporting fatter profit margins than they reported before the pandemic, which doesn't sound like they're just passing along costs. So let me ask you, does that increase in profit margins combined with greater market concentration in industry after industry suggest to you that some corporations may be passing along increased costs and at the same time charging more on top of that to fatten their profit margins?
That could be right. It could also just be, though, that demand is incredibly strong, and that they're raising prices because they can.
Well, that's the point. They're raising prices because they can, and they're not being competed down. Market concentration has allowed giant corporations to hide behind claims of increased cost to fatten their profit margins. So the consumer pays more.
They're raising
both
prices because
the
they
corporation
can.
face higher costs.
So let's get this straight. Let's get this straight, what we're hearing right now, because the media will not tell you this. CNN ain't going to cover it. CNN and MSNBC and, the Washington Post, their editorial board wrote a whole fucking editorial, tisk, President Biden, who we usually slobber over, they're against the student loan cancellation, highly irresponsible. Here you have the Federal Reserve Chair openly acknowledging that, well, yeah, these record profits, they're raising prices because they can. Our government doesn't actually regulate corporations. They're allowed to do whatever the hell they want. There's no caps on corporations. There's no profit cap on corporations. There's no automatic trigger that if you hit a certain amount of profit, you need to raise the wages of your workers who are driving and creating that profit for you. There's no regulations on corporations offshoring jobs after they've been given massive subsidies from the federal government. Remember, General Motors got a $51 billion bailout from the United States government during the financial crash. What did they do? Started offshoring their, not started. They've been offshoring and closing plants for 30 years, but they continued offshoring their jobs, closing down plants, reopening in Mexico and other countries. So the Federal Reserve Chair is admitting that, this inflation, there's high demand, so technically they could raise prices as high as they want. Well, which one is it? Is it because their prices are going up because of the supply chain problem, so they're just passing down that increase, or are they raising prices because they can? Because they can, to me, should be a corporate crime. There should be laws against this. And if you want to call me a communist, go for it. But there should be laws against corporate greed, because guess what? Corporate greed kills people. Guess what? Recessions kill people. People die. And now, after we have this evidence, which if we had a media that actually wasn't corrupt, if we didn't have 6 multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates owning the entire media, do you know that 6 corporations own all of our media in America? Radio, TV, digital, that's 6 corporations. You would think they'd be covering this, because this is basically showing our inflation right now is all greedy financial executives, oil executives, pharmaceutical executives, real estate criminals, tech billionaires, jacking up all your rates because half of them have monopolies. Most of them have bought off the politicians, so they won't regulate them. That is why you have the widest margins of profit in 70 years. I love how Bloomberg suggesting that prices charged by businesses are outpacing their increased costs for production and labor, i.e., they are criminally price gouging you. So to you watching right now, If you're stressed about whether you're going to pay your rent, if you have the money, if you're stressed right now, how are you going to fill up the car to take your kids this weekend, wherever you're going? If you're stressed right now, the rent's almost up and your landlord might jack up your rent by $500. If you're stressed right now, your electricity bill is soaring. Well, Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve's chair's answer for you. Well, higher interest rates, slower growth, and, softer labor market conditions, i.e., we're going to have to raise the unemployment level. We're going to have to lay off millions of people. It's going to bring some pain, but, that's where the pain usually goes, right? The pain has to go to the worker bees, not the corporate criminals.
But I have to say, we're capitalist. And that's just the way it is.
And you know what I say? You know what I say to all this?
Enough is enough. Enough is enough.
The media is going to focus, all of its coverage is going to be on the Trump raid. And I think it's important. That's why I've been covering it. I think it's important when a former president potentially hijacked, nuclear programs, nuclear secrets, information about U.S. spies. I sure think that's important. But I also think it's important when we basically have an oligarchy and we basically have an economic Hunger Games where our government officials are allowing their donors, we live in the United Corporations of America, to run fucking wild and to enrich themselves with no limits at your expense. That's as big of a crime as whatever the hell Trump did. And they're not going to talk about it whatsoever. The media is not going to report on it because most of the people in the media themselves make nauseating levels of money. They probably don't leave their little cocoon in New York City or Washington, D.C. They're not inviting workers to their cocktail parties. And you want to know something? I've not been one of these people that have said, oh, hashtag fraud squad, but at the end of the day, something's got to give. We need elected progressives, even Bernie, to be calling this shit out. We need elected progressives to be activating the base. Sure, there's a lot of deflated progressives out there who, have turned on Bernie and, the squad. But it's not all lost. If they send out the bat signal, we need to protest this. We need to demand that they do something about this corporate price gouging. We need to get thousands of people outside ExxonMobil, outside these oil companies, outside these media outlets that aren't reporting this. I'm not talking about being violent, but mass organizing, mass protest. We need to start organizing some economic boycotts. You want to price gouge us? We're going to start organizing. We're not fucking spending money at these companies. But we're not seeing that because they're too spineless to do anything like that, unfortunately. As I wind up, thank you, Humorous, $5. Ariana and Humorous sitting in a tree contemplating how much to give Status Coup. Why, thank you for that kind comment. Listen, I really, really appreciate any of the super chats that came in. I apologize if I missed any. Usually I have Colin to send me them. Let me make sure I give some shout outs if we got any new member signups. Welcome, new Status Coup member. Hold on. Of course, it's taking forever to load. Here are the super chats. Welcome, new Status Coup member John and Sheila. So that's two new members. Oh, wait. And John, Sheila, and Sean. So 3 new members. Be like John, Sheila, and Sean. Sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. It supports our on-the-ground reporting, as well as, if you've noticed, we've been trying to expand. We got Tina now has a weekly show. We have Kim Brown, who does a weekly show. We got Spencer Snyder doing a weekly series for us. That video's up, called Breaking News, focused on the corporate media. And we're going to hopefully be bringing on some new people too. So definitely sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. Let me read some super chats. Humorous, $5. I'm glad I invested in permanent magic makers before all this redaction took place. I'm making a fortune. Keep up the good work, Status Coup. Welcome everybody. Start hitting that like button, but it's the only way to get this information into the algorithm. Thank you. Humorous, another $5. No one should really listen to Fox News at all. It is not a news broadcasting station. It is literally owned by the GOP propaganda machine. Listen, I used to work there a long time ago, and I can tell you it's one thing absorbing it from the outside. It's a whole nother thing inside. It is a right-wing cult and propaganda machine. I worked at MSNBC. It's basically the same thing on the left. But Fox News, it's terrible. And it's really, really neutered the brains of a lot of people in this country. 1999, humorous for president. Thank you. Double K wrote with the 1999, humorous for president. Humorous, $10. This is from Matt, BBA. He was too shy to send it himself. Why, thank you, Matt. Dino, $10. Thank you, Dino. Humorous, $5. Thank you for all being just kind people and showing up to support real news and truth instead of the bullshit that goes on in America today. Thank you. Another $20 from Humorous. The only legacy that Trump will leave behind is the fact that he literally divided and threw an entire world into chaos, all because he's a wannabe emperor instead of someone that gave a shit about the people. And a megalomaniac. Absolutely. Humorous, $10. One of the very first things Trump said, I could walk down to Times Square, shoot anyone I want, and no one could do a damn thing about it. The president should be allowed to say those words. I think you meant shouldn't. And by the way, there is culpability in our government officials in letting Trump get away with bloody murder for 40 years. I grew up in New York. The New York City government, the New York state government looked the other way to Trump money laundering, tax fraud, because Trump brought commerce to New York City with Trump Plaza. And that, he helped the economy in New York. The media looked the other way because he gave them great headlines for 10 years. Him, Ivana, whoever he was cheating on his wives with. I mean, headlines galore. And by the way, New York City mayor, New York State gave him tax breaks galore where he barely paid any taxes. USPA Way, $20. I came across your live feed by chance, and you explained the delay very well, and how the FBI didn't say anything. Trump did. They respected his position as an ex-president to have plainclothes agents come in. I mean, that's a good point because, of course, it was going to leak that the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. But Trump is the one who, in real time, tweeted it out or posted it out on Truth Social. It's not like the DOJ or FBI, it was there leaking it. Trump put out this information. And by the way, the FBI, the DOJ very easily could have leaked months earlier that they had issued him a subpoena. That didn't leak, that he had been issued a subpoena for this stuff. I mean, I don't really know what more the FBI or DOJ can do if the National Archives is going back and forth with Trump and his lawyers for over a year. Please, Mr. President, Mr. Former President, can you please give us back the classified material? He gives back some of it. You issue a subpoena. He gives back some of it. And then you're tipped off that he has a whole lot more sitting in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, what else can you do? What would the Trump cult members, what would they have the FBI and DOJ do? Just leave the shit there for him to do what he wants with? Double K, 1999. Thank you so much, Double K. Big Dumb Animal, $10. Wish you hadn't mentioned the PPP loan program. Always makes me lose my mind when I think about it. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Not provided, $2. Capitalism 101. Not provided, another $2. I thought price fixing is already illegal. You would think it's illegal, but there's a lot of things that are openly happening in this country that are illegal, but they don't actually go after wealthy white men for it and wealthy white women for it. Humorous, $5. Ariana and Humorous sitting in a tree contemplating how much to give Status Coup. Hey, there's no cap on what you give Status Coup. We take no money from the big banks. We take no money from the fossil fuckers, no money from big pharma, no money from big real estate, no money from Silicon Valley, and no money from the military industrial complex. All our money comes from you, the viewer. So please, 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 if you have $5 to $10 a month, that's all we're asking, $5 to $10 a month, please consider supporting Status Coup, statuscoup.com/join. For you who have followed Status Coup for years, you know we are pretty much the only independent reporting outlet that doesn't just pontificate from a studio. We leave the studio and we cover stuff on the ground all over this country. Need proof? All you got to do, look at the map. We actually got to add stuff to this. We have been all over this country since 2018. East Coast, West Coast. Hey, we even went to Canada for one story. All of this came through people signing up as members. All of this came through a GoFundMe. In the beginning, we had a small investment from a viewer, $50,000, and that was in and out right away because we had to buy equipment. And that went to bringing on my then cameraman, Ty. After that, it's been building our membership and a GoFundMe. And we want to continue growing. We have a lot to cover on the ground. Obviously, we want to cover the midterms. Then there's the 2024 presidential campaign. Hopefully, there's a progressive primary. I'd love to cover it on the ground. We want to continue covering the union organizing that's going on in this country. We obviously want to cover the strikes that are going on in this country. As I mentioned, it's possible we might see a massive railroad worker strike of over 100,000 workers. Imagine that. There hasn't been that level of a strike in maybe 100 years. But I just interviewed the head of Railroad Workers United, and it doesn't look good for a new contract. And they've been without a contract for 3 years. And if you talk to these railroad workers, it is inhumane what they're going through. Their attendance policy is basically you're on call 24/7, and maybe we'll give you 1 day off a week. To the railroad workers and freight workers of America. So there might be a massive strike there. We're going to continue covering the workers organizing at Amazon. We covered the Staten Island workers for over a year before they were victorious. Now you got workers in Kentucky at Amazon that are organizing for a union. In Albany, New York, in North Carolina. Obviously, the Starbucks wave. You have Trader Joe's workers who are now successfully unionizing. Let's not forget about the coal miners who have been on strike in Alabama for over a year. So there's a lot we want to cover, but it costs money to go out on the ground and cover these things. So definitely consider signing up as a Status Coup member. It makes a big, big difference. Big, big difference. All right. I think that's all I got. We'll have videos that we're posting tonight. We'll have videos that we're posting this weekend, including some on the ground reporting. So thank you so much for watching. If you're new to Status Coup, definitely subscribe. That's free. Subscribe. Click the bell for all notifications. So that's right next to the subscribe button. And you hover over the notifications bell. Let me show you right here. So click the subscribe and then click that bell. All notifications. Also, join our text list. Very important. So you'll get a text message when we're live. That's statuscoup.com/text. statuscoup.com/text. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll get a text message when we're live because YouTube doesn't always notify people. So that's statuscoup.com/text. And I hope you enjoy your summer weekend. And unless something major breaks over the weekend, I'll see you back here on Monday. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.